DMs of TikTok, you are probably using the alignment grid wrong.
Now, what I expected when I saw that video and saw that beginning was that the original poster was going to explain how to take the grid that currently exists and apply it in a more universal way that makes sense to more players. That's not actually what he does. He explains a way to use the grid and change terms in order to fit different settings, which is a good thing. That's a pretty creative approach. I really like it. And it's a good video. I encourage you to go watch the whole thing. But I think that it misses the point that the alignment grid is supposed to be universal about different themes and about different settings, and therefore it doesn't really address how to use it as it exists properly. And so what I use it as, how I explain it to people, is actually pretty simple. I tell people the problem that we have with the alignment grid as it exists right now is that we assume that these words mean something that we assume they mean in our culture. That is, that good and bad or good and evil are defined by a very Christological mindset that we have in the West, or a very specific sort of ideology that we carry into the game, and that's not the case. What it actually is that the good, evil, law, and chaos are defined by very specific things. And I think that if you look at the descriptions, you start to see what those are. And what they are, in my opinion, how I explain it to people, that seems to make sense to them, and then they are able to use the grid much more effectively, is that they are about the social relationships. So, for instance, good has a much more external focus. That is, it is more concerned with the good of society over the good of the individual, whereas evil is more concerned about the good of the individual. So if you're leaning more good, you're concerned about how your actions are going to impact people around you, how they're going to impact society, how they're going to impact the poor and needy and stuff in this city, all that other stuff. Whereas the more evil you are, the more it's about me and benefiting me and at the cost of other people. Good and evil, then, that is a spectrum. It's a spectrum from, at the very, very top, a mindset where I will sacrifice self for society at every possible opportunity. And at the very bottom of the spectrum is I will sacrifice society for self at every possible opportunity. And most people fall somewhere in between, realistically. And really what you're looking for is where on that spectrum does your character fit. Similarly, law and chaos is about external and internal sources of, what's the word I'm looking for? Morality. Internal versus external sources of morality. So a lawful character gets their sense of morality from an external source, whether it's a social structure, whether it's a government, or a religion, or a specific deity, or whatever it is. Their idea of morality is sourced from an external perspective. Something outside of themselves is defining good and evil for them. Whereas a more chaotic person is defining their morality more internally. They're following their own moral compass. They're defining for themselves what is good and what is evil. And so a chaotic good character is someone who looks at situations and says, does this feel like a good thing for society? Or and acts in that direction. They're looking at where their own internal urges guide them is the best possible option, and their best thing that they view as what is possibly the best is what is going to benefit the largest number of people. That is what chaotic good looks like in practice. Whereas when you start getting into like lawful evil, for instance, it's very much, I am very rigidly following a set of rules that are external to myself, but I'm using them in a way that benefits me at the expense of other people. And so when you start to look at it this way, that it's very much about internal versus external sources of morality and internal versus external benefit, then you're able to view it as a spectrum that you're able to kind of pinpoint your location on and see kind of the fluidity of it. And I think, personally, I believe that's a much more appropriate use of the alignment grid as it was designed to be. And it also allows it to be much more universal. You can plug that those ideas into any setting, into any theme of a story, and you'll still end up being able to get the same results. You still see yourself on these spectrums, and you're able to use those as a perspective to gauge how you're going to interact with the world as it exists in this setting.